Oh, hey, it's Peter here from the Tin Man. Today, we're going to talk about backup power on pellet stoves. Stay tuned. All right, so what we have here in our showroom is we have a Harman Allure 50 pellet stove, and we have the Blue Eddy AC 200L backup. What you're seeing right now is the stove has met temperature. We've got some other stoves in our showroom that are currently going and burning. So the temperature has risen up here to the point where the Harman's cut. The pellet stove is actually on the way out. So right now what you're seeing we're at 2,400 RPMs of our combustion blower, but there is no flame or anything on the stove. So basically, what we're getting is, and we're still plugged into power, by the way. So our Blue Eddy is plugged into the wall, and our Harman pellet stove is plugged into this Blue Eddy. And basically, on the screen on the Blue Eddy, you're seeing this. So what you're seeing is 100% power, 99.9 hours there in the middle on the bottom, and 29 watts currently being used on the stove. 30 just jumped up. So what I'm going to show you is what happens when you turn this stuff on. So I'm going to come back to you in a second. I'm going to set this up a little bit differently so you can kind of see what I'm doing, and you'll be able to see. I want you to see this screen so you'll see what's happening with the pellet stove, and we'll talk about some of the modes. All right, so first things first, I'm going to turn the temperature up on the pellet stove. So that's going to engage the igniter. So a couple things are going to happen right now. So power consumption right now is going to be from the combustion blower. Now is picked up at speed. It went from 2,400 RPMs, which is producing that 30 watts. And that's gone up and starting to rise. The auger motor is turned on and the igniter is on. I turned the temperature up here to 24 degrees, which is 2 degrees above the current temperature, to get this to activate. As you can see, what's happening in the Blue Eddy is it's showing 343 watts right now. So in a situation where if this was on backup power, the problem that you're going to have is that consumption of wattage is going to lower your backup power. So if the stove is already going, that's one thing. If it's not going and you got to start it, it's going to be a lot more power consumption. So I'm simply going to pull the plug out of the wall. Here's our plug for our Blue Eddy was plugged into, and right now on this power pack in particular, at the current rate that we're going, we only have 5.8 hours of usage, which is the current at the current rate. So as this changes, as things change in the stove and it starts going for longer periods of time, when the igniter turns off, you're going to see that 5.8 hours increase. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the pellet stove going, get it started back up again, have it running, and I'm going to show you what mode I would use when we're dealing with a power failure situation. Okay, so we hit another milestone. So the stove now has brought itself up to that 10% blower speed. So 10% blower speed is where it'll sit there and hold. So it holds for a little bit, measures temperature. And then as the temperature starts to warm up, it'll say, okay, we've passed this point where we're out of our startup phase, and we'll let the blower activate and go where it needs to go. So to give you some idea, I'm going to go into the stove and I'm going to turn the blower speed up. So I'm going to bypass this in manual. This is 100% blower speed. So at 100% blower speed, what you're seeing now is you're seeing full force on the blower. We have 157 watts of power being consumed. And on our backup power says if we keep this rate, we are going to be at 11 hours of backup power. You see now it's jumping to 12, 13, 13.2. So it's trying to regulate to figure out how long it's going to last. It just jumped up to 157 because the auger just cut in. So it goes back and forth like that. As I turn the blower down, let's see what happens. So let's go down to 50% blower speed. So 50% blower speed drops us down to 108. So now we're up to 137 because the auger just cut back in. So you're going to see this just regulate based on how much airflow is coming out, so how much power the blower is pushing out, uses more power on our backup. So the important thing here is to find that happy medium. Where do we find a happy medium in a power failure situation? How long do we need power failure? How long do we need our pellet stove to operate and push out heat? What is our purpose to this? If we're putting a backup on a pellet stove like this and you want it to run when the power goes, what I suggest to do is change the modes that you're normally working. So right now we are operating in room temp mode. And room temp mode is a great mode to regulate your temperature in your room. It will give us the ability to, keep the temperature within plus or minus 1 degree. And it's one of Harman's, it's one of the reasons I think Harman is like they are. There's a couple of reasons, but Harman stoves are the best on the market. One of them is the fact that they're room sensing and they sense that temperature. But in a power failure situation, what can happen is if you leave it in room sensing mode, as the stove makes the room warm, and as the wireless sensor or the room sensing probe that's on the back of the stove, depending on what model you have, cuts in, what will happen is you'll consume more power because it'll bring the igniter on. So if the temperature drops, all of a sudden the igniter comes on. Now you're gone back to that. The wattage has gone up. So as you see right now, we are at about 17 hours of backup, 17.8 at 93 watts. That's with the stove sitting at 10% blower speed, and currently like it is in this room sensing mode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this now in constant burn mode. That's the mode I like when it comes to power failure situation. So I'm going to go in here to the touchscreen. I am going to go in to my burn mode settings. I'm going to hit constant burn, and I'm going to get out of that screen. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to take my blower, and I'm going to leave my blower at somewhere where it's comfortable for me, that I like the fact that it's moving a bit of air and it's going to keep the heat in my home. So right now I am setting this at about 20% blower speed. So let's see what 20% does. That's 20%. So we've taken our room fan and we put it in manual mode at 20% speed, and we have our stove in constant burn mode. So other than the auger cutting in, this stove will constantly produce the same amount of power. So right now we're at about 78 watts. And then it jumps when the auger cuts in, it jumps up to around 100, 101 watts. So what it's telling us on the backup is that we have roughly about 17 hours of burn time or power out of this Blue Eddy unit. So right now currently, when it's at 70 watts, it's around 20 hours. So we're 17 to 20 hours. If we want to say, we'll take an average of that and say we're somewhere around 18 and a half hours of burn time or run time we should get from this power pack. Now, is that enough for you and your family? Is that enough to keep your house warm? Do you have power failures that are longer than this? Maybe this model is not the one for you. Maybe you want a larger model or larger capacity, and larger capacity obviously will run in longer in time. So that all works as well. What I'll do is I'll take you to the screen now too shortly, and I'll show you what I did on the screen. So as you can see, our fire is going, and we have our power is not plugged in, and we are at 98% capacity. I'm running in an eco mode on this unit. Okay, so here we go. Here's our modes that we had. So right now this stove is set currently to room temp mode. It's 22 degrees here. The stove is set for 24, and we're actually moving down in our temperature. So blower got pretty warm here, so the blower was up in speed, is down to 23% blower speed. And our RPMs for our combustion fan are at 2600, and it's the auger just cut in is at 55% capacity, and our ESP probe is 150. So to give you some idea. So mode wise, for what I would do, excuse me, what I would do for in a power failure situation. So say you're in room temp mode, stove is going, and all of a sudden power goes, you've got it on a battery backup, you're home. To save power, to get the most amount of time from it, I would simply go into our menu, I would go into burn mode, put it in constant burn mode, and I would set my level where I have my comfort to where you want to be. So right now I'd set it on the 30 setting. I'd also go in. So right now the blower, you're seeing the blower speed's at now at 28%. I would go into the room fan. I take it out of automatic, and I would set it somewhere where your comfort level is on that, where it can move some air but not use a whole lot of energy. So as we said earlier in the video, I think we had it about 20% or so. Let's see if I can get my fingers, my big clunky fingers to work. There you go, 21, close enough. So, and I just go out, and now you see the screen is a little bit different. We're at 21% speed, and our setting is at 30 setting. You can go here and change this, but basically what's going to happen now is the stove is not going to search for temperature, so it's not going to send a signal. This unit in particular has a wireless sensor that sends signals back and forth every couple of minutes, which is also going to chew up power. Room sensing probe that's attached to the back of this. If you don't have the wireless sensor, that also is going to chew up some power. So this way, it gives it the least amount of power coming out of that stove. And right now, the stove is sitting here. I got it plugged back in, but we're only consuming about 80 watts. So there's a huge difference in power. Now the blower, the auger just cut in. I think we're at 102. So pretty cool. So that concludes our video for today. I hope this video has given you value. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave any comments. So if you got comments there, if you look at some of our past videos, we respond to pretty much every comment that is on there. So if we can help you out, we will. Keep in mind, all stoves are not alike. I would argue that Harman is the best brand of pellet stove in the world, and nobody can really hold a candle to them. Have a great day.